The episode you're about to listen to is a promotion for the summer of 2024 #Writers Bookfair Tour. We want you to come along. There's no cap to the number of writers that we will accept to be part of this. The more, the merrier. Everything compounds in getting cheaper. The more people we have with us, and the better opportunity we have to get national publicity for what we're going to do. So listen in closely. If you're an author and you want to sell books and you're not selling books, this may be the thing you've been looking for. If you're not published and you want to shoot to be published by summer of 2024, there's a goal for you to set. Listen in closely because we're going to give you a high level overview of everything that's going on. And then the last thing I want to say before we jump right in is if you're not subscribed to this podcast through my Substack, you're not getting an optimal experience of what it has to offer. Every show comes with show notes, and especially in this case, the show notes are a real companion piece for the podcast episode itself. So jump in there for more information. Any questions you have, you can drop comments. One of us will answer you about the tour. And as I say at the end of the podcast, and I'll say right here at the beginning, Juliet Willows is the point person for gathering all of the applications. If you want to be part of the process to ask those questions, she will be handling those things. But really, any of us can get you where you need to go. So without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with #Writers.
If you've ever watched an author read in public and felt bored, TRBM is the antidote. That reminds me of the space-time continuum and how we're just a flash of light in a dark abyss. Now TRBM is for writers what time-lapse was for painters, guitar solos and spotlight were for bands, and what chainsaws and ice blocks were for sculptors. But what does TRBM stand for? Trendy raccoons bake macaroons? 10, Ryan, Bait and Niven? Or transatlantic radio broadcast material? Look, you decide.
A book tour on its own is basically us going and like promoting one book, and people are coming to see us specifically, versus a book fair. There's a lot of people, and they'll come and see multiple authors. And I think that's where the difference is there. So I think it's more of a book fair, but I could be wrong.
Well, I would say that you're absolutely right, because there's a difference between a book tour and a book fair tour, because book tours, people tend to think they're like signing events, and the book fair is known around, anything, whether it's a health fair or a book fair or whatever. It imbues this concept of this image of like that what I sent out, the picture with the big fair with all the booths and everything. And we want to make sure that we put it, that we hit it in that direction, because that's what we're after. Because a lot of people will say, oh, I know of a little bookstore here, or we're trying to make a book fair with giveaways and events and make it fun for people.
So what I like about what you're saying, Heather, is one thing, and I don't know, Juliet, we'll get to this pretty quickly, but Christopher Talon is a roving co-host for me on this podcast, and I love what he's done with his novel, in that he calls it basically the bookstore-less book promotion. He doesn't have his book in any bookstores. He intentionally sells it at like pot shops and different places like that, and instead of going to bookstores, because he's kind of angry even about like local bookstores and the way that there's a little bit of elitism. Unfortunately, you still have to be published by a press in order to have credentials. And there's very few bookstores that are stepping outside of that kind of ethos, which is a bummer, because if you're a local bookstore and you have a local author, you should at least consider their work. I understand that there are a lot of challenges to doing that, because quality control in the world of self-publishing is kind of like walking through a minefield, in that there's a lot of junk out there. And I think we all agree. We're all actually in the process right now of evaluating people who want to be part of our book fair tour. And some of them aren't passing the snuff test, right, Juliet? I mean, some of them aren't quite where we want them to be.
Yeah, I mean, I've read some really great stuff, but I've also read some stuff that just kind of I don't want to sound mean, but it makes me cringe. And
Yeah.
It just shows why indie authors have such a bad rep.
In what way, like in like 25 words or less, in what way did it make you cringe? Just like the writing, the style, the just lack
Everything.
of, okay.
Everything. So you can tell that it's not edited. You can tell that it's not formatted by anybody other than the author themselves. And yes, we're the closest to our work, so we know it best, and we want to keep our voice and we want to keep our style, but we're so close to our work that we cannot see the mistakes and the holes and the oopses, like it takes somebody else's eyes to see those things. Myself, I can see, I edit for people, so I see other people's mistakes really easily, but I don't see my own.
Yeah.
So, it's so important to get the work edited, and it's so obvious when it's not. And it gives everybody in the indie industry a bad reputation because we're all lumped in together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and to that point, I think that there are two things maybe three that I can think of off the top of my head why people would eschew an editor, right? Especially as someone new. First of all, it would be they love to claim that it's the expense. Now, and I know, I just spent a lot of money to put book 4 into my editor's hands. But so there's cost. And then there is fear. People fear, to Juliet's point, people fear that their voice will be lost, or that something will be changed that's going to make it not their own book. And until you have gone and worked with an editor, you will never know that that's just not the case. If you've got a good editor, that's not the case. So there's cost, there's fear, and frankly, let's be honest. Can we just be honest? It's ego. Well, I don't need to do this. And then we can throw all of our excuses to not properly edit can go into one of those three buckets. Well, I don't care. I only write for me. Well, I don't care. I'm not looking, I don't think that my book's going to sell big. I don't care. So it's like that apathy can be put into one of those categories, just as anything else can. Go ahead.
There's a secret fourth category is that they're just not serious, or they don't understand the seriousness of. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I wrote a book, I have it, it's done, boom, here you go. It's like, but do you know the process? Have you actually done the research? Do you have a dream, or do you have a, you know what I mean? So,
well, and you're right, and that what I think that either people don't know or don't care, depending on who it is, right, is that impacts everybody. Again, to Juliet's point about it gives us all a bad rap, because we, especially as we see traditional publishing, I don't know that the quality of traditional publishing is that much better anymore than indie, because if for those of us who are serious and, go try to do everything the right way, right? I've seen plenty of traditionally published books that are poorly edited, and that the mistakes I've seen in there, I know that I'm pretty vocal about this one book that I just really disliked that was traditionally published. Only book in my life that, number one, I would not finish after I got into like one chapter, and then I threw it away. I didn't even want to give it to anybody else because I didn't want to promote in any way this author. I was so upset. And I just finished book 3 and I'd worked so hard. And then I read this thinking it was going to be a guilty pleasure, and it was so awful that I cried, because I thought this person was on St. Martin's Press, and I can't pay people to read my book. And I know that it's good.
Oh, I'm paying people to read my book, paying a lot of money. Okay. I want to linger here for just a moment because I think it's important for people listening who might be interested in hashtag writers and joining the Bookfair Tour to understand the kind of standards that we have. And I also want to bring light to something that Heather said that Juliet is kind of lingering on. When we think about writing, that we don't apply to any other industry. So I want to bring to your attention restaurants. This is the easiest parallel I can think of out there. If you live in New York City, and I think somebody here might, there are new restaurants popping up all the time. Indie restaurants, and I'm calling them indie restaurants for a reason. If the food is shit, people just don't go there and it closes because it can't make ends meet. So there's this quality control thing that happens in the world of food that does actually happen in the world of writing. It's just that we have a hard time acknowledging that some of the books that are written are shit restaurants that don't take the time to source their ingredients, to figure out good recipes, to make sure that the food they're putting out there is high quality. Here's the other place that restaurants do a really good job of being a parallel to the writing world is there's McDonald's. Why do you go to McDonald's? Because I know every single time I go to a McDonald's, I can get sausage egg McMuffin with cheese, and it's going to taste exactly the same no matter where I go. Now, they're franchises, so sometimes they cook it a little bit longer, use a little bit more butter, but generally speaking, same experience. Starbucks, same experience. Those are the big guys. Those are the big ones. Those are the FSGs and the Knopfs and all of that. And you know when you go there that you're going to get a certain product, but you're not going to get innovation. You're not going to order a particular product and be like, wow, that's so different. That's so amazing. Indie publishing is that place where you can get the highs and the lows very extremely. So whoever's inspired to speak on that, I just want to hear you reflect a little bit on your thoughts on indie publishing and maybe how we can reframe the way we think about it. Because honestly, you can't change the idiots, and I'm sorry, but you can't change the idiots who go out there and they're not willing to pay, because restaurants do that. Restaurants take like crappy ingredients and hope to make a masterpiece out of it. And restaurants think that they know more than they do, or they don't care, or they just were inspired all of a sudden, whatever it might be. Talk to me a little bit about that analogy and how it works.
Well, I love that because I live in New York City. I love that analogy of restaurant to indie authors. But I have to say, any successful restaurant that comes into New York City that's a small mom and pop shop or something that's not a big brand has one of two things going for them. Either one, location, or two, it has something that people want, right? So when there is a new, authentic way in which you can get Italian food and it comes directly from Italy or it comes directly from the shore, you have something fresh. People want to go to explore it. And so I think it's the same thing with indie authors, is that you can write a book. Anyone can write a book. You can publish. Anyone can publish. But unless you're able to either have a connection to place it somewhere or in the hands of somebody who's willing to look at it, read it, or give it the time of day, or if you're able to have something that people want, something that will connect with your readers and other authors, you have to have one of those two things to start paving your way in the world. Otherwise, like you said, 2 or 3 people are going to come to the restaurant. They're going to say, that was nice. And they're never going to want to schlep back out because it's not something that grabs people. So
I have a different take on it, not restaurant, but y'all know I write in, well, at least this saga in the entertainment industry. So let me make another analogy, and that would be to any television, movie, or song ever recorded. You are not going to go see a band. You're not going to pay money to go see a band that's put out a crap product. You're just not going to. If you hear a lot, if it's not mixed well, if the sound levels are off, if there's just something that doesn't seem professional about the production of that track, you're not going to download it on Spotify or get it or whatever. You're going to say, well, you're going to recognize it for what it is so fast. And that isn't even the quality of the melody or the worthiness of the song itself. It's just that it's so badly produced. If you were to watch a television or let's say an indie movie, right? You're going to watch an indie movie and you're going to see that microphone that's like sticking out from the top, or you're going to see, a little glimpse of the backstage. You're going to just see, you're going to know if something's not professionally produced. And to Jody's point, it really is different in the literary community because it's almost like we've gone hog wild. We've been so hamstrung by the traditional publishing venue where we get, rejected by agents or rejected. And all of a sudden we're like the dogs off the leash, right? So we're all like, we can publish whatever we want. Yes. And we're like just taking off, but something's being sacrificed. And we have to be serious as business people and serious with our art. Yes, it's art, but it's a product. And anybody who is going to put in the time of day to write a book, and that can take anywhere from, weeks to months to years to do. Why put so much of yourself into that? It's like, oh, it's just for me. And then the rest of us also suffer along with you.
This is a business. This is something that, most of us in this community, we want to take seriously because we want to be authors. We don't want to just have this hobby, and to put ourselves out there. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the world's best writer. I know I'm not, but I take my work seriously and I want to put out the best work that I possibly can out there. And that includes spending money because I'm not going to, just put out a rough first draft. I want people to take me seriously as an author. I don't want to be just some other, nobody. I actually do want to make a name for myself. And I think we all do. And to see people who claim to be serious about this as much as we are, and then see their responses and their actual writing and know that they're not taking it seriously. It's just kind of defeating, because there's so many of us who do want to be taken seriously as indies. Or even as first-time publishers traditionally. There's a lot of traditional people out there in the Twitter community who are hell-bent on going the traditional route, Ben. And that's fine, but it's not the same industry that it used to be, as we all know. And I think they're merging very quickly. And it's just really important for us as up-and-comers to set, I guess, the standard.
I love that. Well, I love what you said about spending money because, to relate it to like clothing, you can go to Walmart. I'm not bashing Walmart, but you can go to Walmart and get a t-shirt and you'll wear it for 5 times. You'll put it through the wash and it will fade and they'll have a hole in it. Or you can go to somewhere with a bigger brand and, the quality's nicer and it lasts longer. And I really think that the idea that you pay for what, you get for what you pay for is really important. I think that, especially with your writing, if you're going to put something out there and publish it, and it's going to be there forever. You want to make sure it has quality and substance and go through your edits and make sure that your cover is on point and make sure that you have some type of way to promote it and make sure that it, it's solid because you only have one shot. Once you start redoing things, there's those holes in that shirt. You can always clean up the shirt and re-dye it, but it's still going to have that hole in it. So, make sure that if you're going to do it, through indie publishing, don't have a hole in that shirt,
Pay for what you have. My shirt.
Dress for the role you want.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I like that. Yes.
I like that. And I also hate that, though. Okay, no.
That's the business in me, Jody. That's
trust me.
That's what my boss has always said.
I totally do not
my
disagree
advertising
with you.
days. Never dress. Never dress for the role you have.
Trust me. I don't disagree with you. I think where you and I are having a lot of fun and nobody else here or anywhere understands that we're having a fun battle on Substack about movies and Hollywood.
Did you respond again?
Yeah, well, no, not since the last one. I'm still waiting for you to prepare. Although side conversation, so we'll shuttle it to the side. But essentially, I believe that Hollywood is alive and well. When I really think about it, I think you think it's probably dead since the writer's strike in 2008. I want to shift the conversation back, though, because Ben made a comment about paying for cover design, paying for editing. All of us agree there's no other door to a great product but to pay people to do things. Here's a strange thing, and I haven't admitted this anywhere else, so you guys are getting a hot take right now. My wife does all of my art, so you might or might not be able to see this right here, but this is a line drawing.
Love it.
That's why I love it. Yeah. And the fact that you can recognize it tells you everything you need to know. She is a amazing artist and she's trained. So I just happen to be married to somebody who is an accountant. So she does our taxes and all our finance, and she's an artist. She can draw. And so I trusted her to do the artwork for all of my covers. But when I go out to the world, I make sure to tell them I paid for it. They don't understand that I paid for it by cleaning the bathrooms, and taking care of the kids and everything, because people are going to get a certain opinion if they're like, oh, it's a homemade cover. Well, I'm like, no, it's not homemade. However, this is really, really important. There are two sides to every coin. If you got somebody in your family, you got a friend who's willing to do something on the cheap for you, and they're good, go for it. But it's such a difficult thing. And also for anybody listening right now, two of us in this conversation are self-published and two of us are traditionally published. So Ben is going to be traditionally published here real shortly. Heather is being traditionally published right now. She's going through this whole big process. Juliet and I are self-published. And so I think that we have a really good balance of representation between these different roads. And I think that's important for a listener experience right now to understand. We're not all just being like, hey, self-publishing, yay. I didn't even publish my novel for 5 years because it was agented and I was waiting for that magical call. When I finally got the magical call, they said, we'll publish you in 25. Like, literally, my kid's going to be out of elementary school by the time that happens. I'm not willing to wait anymore. So I just said no and parted ways with my agent, and on we went. And it's been a good experience. But back to Heather's comment too, and this is where I want to linger for just a moment, is getting readers also costs money. I wish that I could tell you it was different. I think I thought it was different. There may be a handful of people who are fortunate in their timing and they caught the wave of TikTok or LinkedIn. But generally speaking, you're going to have to run an ad somewhere to find readers, even if you're traditionally published. You think that your traditional publisher is only giving you 15% because they're selfish. But the truth is that if they gave you more than 15%, there's zero chance they could make money. It is so expensive to find your reader. So I want to hear each of you. I don't care what order you go in. Talk to me a little bit about the cost of finding readers. It's a totally different thing. And then we will move into the real conversation about our Bookfair Tour.
Well, my only foray so far into this, I haven't put out any actual ads. Well, that's not true. I did put out, I think, 1 or 2 Instagram, I think, like promotions early on. But I did, one of my beta readers for the Lady Phoenix recently put out or started a virtual book tour company. It's just a small startup, but I thought, okay, give her a shot, which I think the concept is great. I put my ebook on for free for 48-hour periods so that her readers could pick it up. So I didn't make the money there. And then they would read the book and give an honest review. I didn't want any, fake reviews. That I wanted them to give proper and honest reviews. If they hated it, I wanted them to say they hated it. The problem I found with it is I think there was a cultural or language barrier because all of her readers were from India. So you can tell in the reviews that English wasn't their first language, or even in some of the titles, they put like the woman Phoenix, or it was just... Wow. It was a bit disappointing, actually quite a lot disappointing, because I did, it wasn't a lot of money that I paid for this, but in hindsight, any money that you spend is an investment. And when you don't get the result that you're looking for, it's disappointing, So that was my...
Pause real quick, because that's so, so important. As a consumer, when I read your book, and by the way, I owe you a review. I've been done with it for a couple of days now. But as a consumer of your book, I actually just saw your stats on Amazon and I was like, damn, she's getting after it. Like, you're doing good compared to many, many self-published authors out there. You have a lot of reviews, you have a good rating. So you're doing really well there. And that's kind of funny because I guess I wanted to highlight the fact that even though your reviews probably were crappy in quality, what actually is seen by the consumer, the book buyer, the reader, is that you have credibility. So
to that, the reviews on Amazon are actually not the reviews from the virtual.
Oh.
They're actual.
Well, you are getting after it then.
Yeah, so these are people who bought my book, didn't get it for free. They bought my book and wanted to leave a review. All the reviews from the tour or virtual book tour are on Goodreads.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Which, for anybody listening, if you don't know this, Goodreads is owned by Amazon. They are in bed together, big time, sleeping together, loving each other.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Yes, indeed.
So as far as finding the reader, that is, as everybody on this podcast knows, it's the bane of my existence. It is so hard because, I mean, and it's terrible because it puts you in a position where you have to either declare, look, maybe my book's not the best in the world, or you have some immense ego like me that's like, look, it's a good product. I don't know why it's not selling. I mean, that's one of the reasons that my publisher and I decided that a relaunch was good, because it really came down to a few basic things. And I think that it's important for people to know this. Titles are important. And if you go to Amazon or anywhere where you go and you can look up a title and find 200 of the same title, then that's where I was with The Ties That Bind. And nobody could find it. I mean, not if nobody would stumble across it, right? Because it was like one of many. So, there was that. And then there was like the covers were beautiful, but they were more art. They weren't really covers. They're very pretty, but they're not covers. So we just had a completely different approach. But as far as, so hopefully that will help. And then also, like Juliet, I have a virtual tour for each of the next 4 books because it's a whirlwind this year, with 4 books coming out, 3 of which are relaunches, and then one of them is a new release. But my book tours start April 8th, and in one shape or form continue till September 4th. But that's for all 4 books. So I'm hoping that I could come anywhere. I'm hoping that everybody hopes for a good review, but I mean, the place that I'm going through actually was recommended to me by my publisher. And so we will see how that works. I don't want to plug, there's another one that I know of, and I could talk to any of you offline if you wanted to, but I don't know it. I haven't used it personally, so I don't want to give it any type of a plug or anything, but I think that it would actually, Juliet, be a little bit of a different experience. And to be honest with you, it's not that expensive, so it might be worth a good try. But another thing that I think that are kind of poo-pooed these days is, and I'm going to say it, guys, book trailers. I am in love with book trailers, and I see so many of them that are shoddily put together. But I think that I understand that this is a written medium that we're in, and that people are, but are they going to read the book? So why would we need a motion picture type book trailer to sell that? But the reality is, you can't tell me about TikTok and then tell me that visuals aren't important. So to that extent, I'm a big believer in book trailers. You all know that I make them. And what I've found is that I really am not good at making just like your basic teasers. Cause I was talking about I'm really bad at choosing fonts and doing whatever, but I can do video. And I think that is, if it's done well, that it can really help. I mean, I've sent both Ben and Juliet. Jody, I haven't sent anything to you because you've been a little offline lately. So, but I mean, I have sent you guys examples of things that I think of. Like Ben, I saw a bunch of stuff that was red and whatever, and it really made me
gorgeous. But it's funny because I love what you're saying, because we are a visual society, right?
Exactly.
And to the point with not just that, when you read a book, you're playing a picture in your mind. But also what helps with that playing picture in your mind is the cover. I cannot tell you how many times the cover has influenced how I visualize something, right? Which is why it's so important. But to that point, what gets me to the cover a lot of times is a trailer. Many times I've seen a trailer, and if I just see the book, I go, oh, that's pretty. Oh, that's nice. If I see a trailer and I feel that emotion, because when you have the sound, when you have the visuals, when you have that sense of emotion, that's what we get from a book. We get that emotion. But when you put it out there and I go, I want more of that feeling, it brings you. And so that visual drags you to the book itself. And even though it is a written medium, it is still very visual in our minds when we're into it. And so I think playing on visuals is so important. So important, which is why when you're on a Bookfair tour, that's why you have giveaways. That's why you have pictures. That's why you have items, because we connect to visuals and we connect kinesthetically to things that are in stories. And it's so important to the human spirit and the human emotion. Totally.
I'm thinking about AWP. It's one of the biggest book conferences in the country. It just happened last week in Seattle. The first time I went to AWP, I've been twice, and I vowed never to go back unless I'm speaking on a panel by invitation, because there's a strange thing that happens when you go to a book tour, is you feel the smallness of your small fishness.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's hard. It's challenging. It's a perfect segue into what we're attempting to do. So not this coming summer, but the following summer, we're all going to join hands and kumbaya and tour around the country. The United States, Juliet, maybe possibly a little bit of Canada, but I don't even have a passport yet. So we'll have to discuss that at another time.
Mine's expired.
See, look, no respect for Canada here. We're going to be touring around.
I love you guys too. It's okay.
Yeah. And I think that the narrative right now is that book tours in general is that readings are not profitable. And if we took a good hard red pen to the financial lines, you'd see that there's the cost of travel, there's the cost of booking venues in many cases, there's the cost of all of the inventory you bring with you. In fact, Heather was right on point in saying, like, start buying up some of your table supplies right now, because that's going to be a pretty big bill if you try to buy it all at once. There's a lot that goes into this. It's not a joke. And so we haven't said this up to this point, but there are people who are applying for the #writers Bookfair Tour. And if we accept them, then we're letting them know the cost is on you. You're going to be paying to be part of this tour. But if we accept you, you get the banner of our name and the promotion that goes with it, and vice versa. You promote us, we promote you. We're all one big kind of entity together, but there's a cost. So I'm interested to hear from each of you a little bit about the cost of doing the Bookfair Tour and why you believe that it's going to ultimately be profitable. Because as much as I want readers, and I think I might be an outlier in this way, as much as I want readers, I don't care if someone buys my book and never reads it. I don't care if they buy it and put it on their shelf and it's just decoration. I want readers, of course, because one reader who says this is the best thing I've ever read is 10 sales. But generally speaking, if someone just buys the book, I live to see another day. If they don't buy the book, I go broke and I'm going to be selling insurance again in a couple years. So with all of that in mind, let's really be financial about this right now. Let's talk about the financial cost of being on this Bookfair Tour and what it looks like and why you think that you can be profitable if you do it correctly.
In one of my old lives, I would do trainings, or I would do fairs. Or I would do, speaker events. So I'm a little bit, this is sort of my wheelhouse. I've done like health fairs. I've done because I used to be in managed care, but so I've done a lot of fairs, right? I've already started, like Jody was saying, I've already started buying my stuff to display my books and to put candy out and to do all the things, right? And we can either publicly or privately have another conversation about that. But one of the things I want to say about this is for people that are considering going into this, we are not looking to profit off of you. So I think that that's an important thing to say, because you get a lot of folks that may be hesitant or negative and say, well, you guys are just trying to create some scam and you want to like bilk money from us or whatever. It's like, look, no, that's not the case. This is the way it's going to work. We will not be able to give anybody any information that we don't have. And until we have a good, solid count of authors to participate, not people that are going to pull out at the last minute. I was just thinking about this morning.
Yeah.
It's like, man, if we had 500 people that were, 500 authors that are like, oh, I'm all in, and then 100 of them pull out at the last minute, that's going to be our cost. So I haven't talked about it with any of you yet, but I would say whatever monies are, I think this is another conversation, but I think that there needs to be an expectation that the people that are in are in. So while we are very, very excited and breathlessly waiting for all the authors to come flooding through Juliet, basically, and into this tour, we need you to be serious, because we're serious, and where we don't want to profit off of our fellow authors personally in terms of like upcharging for booths or venues or whatever. We can be as transparent as possible, but we're not going to know if we need to book a stadium versus a conference room at a hotel, right? We will never know that until we have head counts. So a lot of the questions that people are asking at this point, we can't answer. And that's why. And I think that more than anything is important to note. There is the cost of a booth. I think that what I imagine, and again, we haven't talked about it, you guys, but I imagine that what we would do is get the total cost or the total cost of the venue and basically just divide it by the number of people. Go ahead, Jody.
No, I wanted you to finish your thought, but I also wanted to let you or the listener know that everything Heather is saying is based on scale right now. So it's a cost of a booth only if we can't actually create the event ourselves. If we can create the event ourselves, then it's the cost of the venue. So this is a really important thing to think about here in Omaha, I'm not actually in Omaha, close by, but if I want to get the biggest conference room at the Hilton Hotel in downtown Omaha, that's a big, huge room with a lot of access. But it's only going to cost me $1,000 maybe to rent it for a day. And I don't have perfect numbers right now, but it's not going to be a lot. So if we have 100 writers, do the math at $1,000 for a day. That's not even a cost anymore. That's just a bunch of people coming to a place to do an event and just make bank. So it really depends on the quality of the authors and the number of them. If we can get enough people, and I felt really like this is so important for listeners to hear. The more people that participate, the cheaper it gets for all of us. That's what happens with traditional publishers. That's why they can do what they can do. So we're trying to mimic that by joining together like the Borg. Star Trek listeners. Anyways, yes. I know Heather's not that, but
but also to your point, Jody, when the more people that you have, the bigger the event it is, the more people are likely to come, not just authors, but readers. And so then the more that, the more you make, and the best part is like with your analogy with that conference room, all you have to do, if it's those numbers that you were giving, you got to sell one book to break even.
Exactly. So, Thank you for saying that too. Yes, that's the next step in that one book.
Is that
you appear.
One book. It takes one book. And so literally if you show up and go, oh, I had to spend this amount, and you sell one book, you're like, boom. So I did it. But not only you get the fact that you sold a book and you go, okay, so I wasted a day. You didn't waste a day because you're also getting out there. You're saying I'm a part of this board. You are literally promoting yourself. And that's what we're doing. We're not just promoting a book. We're promoting ourselves, right? We're promoting writers. We're promoting who we are and what you stand for. And so selling that one book and getting out there and saying, I did this, and posting it somewhere or doing that gives you promotion in itself, right? It's free promotion because you're part of something greater.
Beautifully said.
So there is also another expense. These are things that people don't think about. And these, you've got certainly the cost of travel and hotels and whatever. Now, some of us are going to be going to all or most of them. So we'll be traveling, we'll be actually touring. Mm-hmm. Other people may go, well, I don't have a month to give up, or I don't have 2 months or weeks or whatever. I only want to go to New York, or I only want to go wherever. And that brings up 2 things. Number one, we need input as to where people would like us to go. If you guys, if anybody listening goes, oh, wait, I live in such and such, and I know for a fact there's a huge reader community out here, that people, routinely come. That's great. That's good feedback. But it's also important to understand that in as much as you're going to want a professional product in the book itself, you are also going to want to do as professional a booth as you possibly can, because that's going to attract readers. Yes. And there's a lot to be said about the way you set up your booth. And for anybody who actually gets into the the tour itself, maybe we can develop some kind of, suggestion or whatever video that we can just send out to people and say, these are things that you might want to consider as far as getting your booth. Because we're not the police here. We're not like legislating certain, you must do all this, but there are some good ideas out there that we can use to Ben's point, to attract people in. And Ben, you are so right. Even if you only sell 1 book, even if you only sell 5 books, even if you don't break even, when you think about all the expense of the travel and the gas and the hotel and the candy on the tables and the banners or whatever, right? Even if you don't ultimately break even, you still might, because like Ben says, you're connecting with other readers. Mm-hmm. And that is huge, because the next time they happen upon your name through your great advertising, they're going to say, I met that person. I met that person in Orlando at this book fair. That's another thing. But also, you guys, just remember that we have the opportunity here to be a great niche, because the writers of Twitter, that gives us something. Can we get local advertising to say, hey, we've got this group of authors that met on Twitter and they're touring the United States or something, right? So we've got a niche, and I think that we've got a lot of opportunity.
Heather, you said something like, if somebody knows that there's a great reading community here, what's really brilliant about this whole thing is that every person that comes in is a part of it, and every person has a niche or something special or connection somewhere. So everyone that comes in and joins says, but I know so-and-so, or I have a connection here. The more, you don't have to have a lot. You just have to bring one thing and say, I know that this is a great place to go, or here's my suggestion. And between 10 of us, or now 100 of us, or even, I'm hoping more, right? We all have so many connections. We will make magic happen. It's in the numbers. You just have to come and say, here's my one thing. And when you put everyone has a penny, you throw a penny together, and soon you have $100, right? Everyone has to have something, and it could grow exponentially. It's incredible.
So glad you and I were on the same wavelength, Ben. Really, really well put. Because what I wanted to say right now is that all of us, right at this exact moment, I don't know, Juliet actually has the top secret list of everybody who's joined yet. But I want to shout out a couple people on this podcast live right now, because I think that there are a few people who need to be part of this. And I'm not doing this to make you part of it, but we all know a few people who have a city, who have an audience, who have the knowledge to be part of this. So Christopher Talon, if you're not already part of it and you're listening to this podcast, please get on board. Rich Hosek, if you are not a part of this already, please get on board. We need you. Jen Lemaster, thank you so much for everything you do. You are one of the most badass people in the world. Cincinnati, get on this tour. And please, Juliet, Heather, Ben, shout out a couple people that you know who need to be on this tour, that you just think like this tour can't work without these people.
Well, for me, writer-wise.
Yeah.
Writer-wise, Well, somebody that you guys probably all know of, she's going to kill me for saying her name on here.
Do it.
She doesn't have anything published yet, but she's really working on it, and she's a really good writer. You've probably seen her prose poetry. Symphony Hale. She's something else, honestly.
Awesome.
Somebody else that I think would really be great on this tour is Brandon Case.
Beautiful.
You probably all know of him as well. There's quite a few people that I've spoken with. I'm going to go back for a minute to the cost conversation, because I just wanted to chime in from a Canadian perspective. There have been not a lot, but a couple of people who have shown interest and who are in Canada. And for myself, I know that I can't exactly cross the border with boxes and boxes of books in my car without, raising some red flags. And if I were to fly, books are heavy. I'm not going to be carrying tons of inventory. But Heather and I have been talking behind the scenes, and a good option is to order the books and have them shipped directly to the venues.
Yes.
That you're going to be going to. So if we're going somewhere we were talking about New Orleans, for instance, I'm going to just order a couple of boxes of each of my books and have them shipped directly to that venue, so that I don't have to, worry about the cost of transporting these things and possibly being held up at the border for, and another thing for Canadians to keep in mind as well, I haven't looked at this just yet, but it's probably really important, is the legalities of selling your product in another country. That it's probably fine. I mean, I would really hope it's fine. But that's something to probably look into. You can cut this if you want.
No, it's really important that you're saying this. I, to the best of my knowledge, a book is fine to sell in any country. And I think I will just add to this logistically, because I've been doing a ton of self-fulfillment books, is if you are with Amazon right now, you can order author copies and send them anywhere you want. And they are the same basic cost. Right. So like my book costs $5.07 no matter where I send it. Because they will just print it in a warehouse in that country. So I could literally drop down in China today and it would still cost me $5 American and 7 American cents to drop it wherever I want to ship it. So if you're listening, and I agree with Juliet 100%, ship your books where they're going to be if you're going to tour with us. And Canadian authors, most likely you're going to tour with us, because we're not, I don't think, going to touch a ton of Canada. Offline, actually, I do think it's important to make sure that like Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, those are cities that probably are very well worth our attention. And I'd get a passport to do it once we get closer to time. I joked early on that I don't have a passport right now, but I lived in Spokane, Washington for 2 years. My wife and I kept talking about going to Vancouver, and it just never happened. We had little kids and blah, blah, blah. Excuses. Yes, it is pretty.
Pretty there.
Thank you, Juliet. That's a really, really good one. I want to make sure Heather and Ben both shout out your people on Twitter right now. I know it feels pressure, like pressuring and salesy, but I actually think that's important, because there are some people who should be doing this that maybe are not fully committed yet.
Well, I can tell you, I'm not going to shout at anybody just because I don't want to put anyone on the spot. However, whoa. Hold on. Hold your breath for a second. Trust me, I have DM'd people. I have gotten several people. I have pushed people. So you all know who you are. And several of them have also gone in. And there are a few people, like Julia said, who are not published yet, but can be. And I think that's also the point, is that if you're wavering between should I do it, should I not, and you're on the process of publishing something, don't push it and go, let me do it without editing, of course. Make sure you go the right path. But if you're within that time frame, this would be great to have a book come out and then go off and do this. That's an incredible start, right? Because then you don't have to do it on your own. It's not just a book tour. It's a Bookfair Tour, right? You are literally in something that is larger than yourself. And so you exponentially then become more important because you are part of something greater. So I think it's a great start to a book, which is mine's coming out in August. So I'm gonna putz around and I'm gonna beg people and throw my book at people around the sewer and read it, and I'm gonna try my hardest. And I think that I'm gonna see maybe a little uptick, when it first comes out, and then I'm gonna watch the numbers. But I really think that this tour is gonna help promote this new career that I have. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, well said. Heather?
Well, and it's going to not only promote that, it's going to promote you, Ben. Right. And some of us will owe you a review once the book comes out, because we've already had the pleasure of reading it.
And I love you for it.
So as far as people I would like to come out, Jody, I didn't think about this before the podcast. So many, I think, of the people that I know of are in Europe. Oh, wow. I would love, if anybody in Europe wants to come over and spend the summer, a couple months, or even a couple of weeks in America, Corey Tate. I know you're not quite Corey. There yet, but yes. I love Corey. I wish she would come out. Yes. Gosh, I don't know. I can only say that my publisher, the owner of my publishing house, her name is Janet Fix. And Janet also writes. And she has this really nice series that's out and that she did with author Cheryl Bradford. And I would love to see Cheryl Bradford. I would love to see Angie Gallion. I would love to see Janet come out. I think they all live in the South. So it might be like if we did something in Atlanta or something. Right. Another author that she's probably going to kill me for saying it, but and I know I've mentioned her before, and everybody's probably tired of hearing me say it, but Ryan Rayston, she and I go back an awful long time, and she has two of what are my favorite all-time books. One has to do with her time in witness protection and how that came about. And that's actually based on a true story. But the second one is really just, oh my gosh, it's just, her books are so good. And I would really, really, really love to see Ryan come out. I don't know if she will, but if we're in the Los Angeles area, or I think even in the Tahoe area, that I would just love to see Ryan come out. But there's so many people, so many people, and we all interact with them every day. I'm glad, Jody, that you mentioned Rich Hosick, because I have fallen in love with him and Christopher Talon.
Yes, you should.
Craig Crawford, I think is
Craig. Sorry, I didn't actually shout you out. Yeah.
So but there's a ton of you guys, and we. It's a hard thing on Twitter because we are, Jody seems to have a niche. Juliet and Ben, all three of you guys seem to have a niche. I really don't have much of a niche. I get emotional, or I get business minded, or whatever. But it's hard because we want to interact with everybody, and we do make friends and everything that we interact with. But we do also put out, our teasers and our trailers and whatever. And people don't seem to want to interact that much with those things, right? It's not, but it's part of what we're doing here. And we may not, for every 10 posts that we put out that it's more personal, we are going to put out, a teaser, a trailer, or whatever. And we're still us. Yeah. We're still the same people that you interact with on Twitter all the time. We're just also business people. And I think that's important to remember.
Absolutely critical. So I do want to say one thing, that none of you are doing what I am doing. And in some circles, that makes me a little less popular than you, probably rightfully so. But I DM all of my followers. Heather and I became friends because I DM'd her. She was interacting with me on the Huge. I think, exactly. Juliet pointed to herself if you're not watching. I sent a DM and I said, I have a podcast called The Reluctant Book Marketer. I would love for you to give it a try. If this message is unwelcome, no worries. You'll never hear from me again. It's a fairly low stakes, but kind of scary thing to do. And then you realize that I literally, if I showed you my message right now, I get responses from people that I messaged back in September or August that are like, oh, I never check my messages. I'd love to listen to your podcast. I grew this podcast from basically my aunt and my wife listening to it to the top 2% of all podcasts by doing that. So it's really super duper uncomfortable to step outside of the societal norms of communicating with people to say, I have this product I need for you to consume if you're interested. And if you're following me, there's something about me that you already like checked off in your box. You said you liked me. So Twitter is cool, but it's kind of like a double opt-in for all of you people who make lists with your email. You know, they check that they want to sign up, and then they have to go to their email and say, yes, I really signed up for that. It's kind of like a double opt-in. First they follow you, then you message them. If you never hear from them, no big deal. I would love for you to do that if you're listening right now and you just want to grow your base of like committed followers, because I couldn't be doing what I'm doing right now without Juliet and Heather. So valuable, your support, your love, your kindness. I've gone through some really hard times recently, and it's strange to say this, but I couldn't have made it without my friends on Twitter. And that's the power of what we're doing. I actually don't have a lot of close friends right now. So it's a strange life. I live in a town of 900. My very best friends, my best man, my groomsmen from my wedding, they've all sort of drifted and done their own thing. But these people on Twitter that share a passion with me have supported me in a time that I desperately needed it. If you listen to this podcast, you understand a little bit more of the backstory. If this is the first time listening, just trust me, Twitter is beautiful. So with that in mind, Heather, I hear you. Let's talk a little bit about, and then let's look toward the wrap up. This tour is focusing on Twitter. That's what we're doing here. We're focusing on Twitter. But we're not saying no to traditionally published authors. We're not saying no to anybody, but let's talk about the power of a crowd that already exists, of why we're hashtag writers and all of that. And you don't have to respond directly to that question. I just want to hear from each of you in closing what you wished you had said and haven't had a chance to yet.
Ben.
Oh, gosh. Now you got to put me on the spot. I don't know, something I haven't said. I said a lot. I think it would just be that we're all passionate about something. We're either passionate about writing, we're passionate about reading, we're passionate about publishing, we're passionate about indie authors or traditional. We're all passionate about something. And I really think that if you take your passion and you go one step farther than you've gone, magic can happen. And I really wanted an agent, and I really wanted this, and I wanted I wanted a million things. And instead of having a dream, I decided to go on an adventure, right? And so I took a step out of my dream and I put one foot into a different world, and I'm off on an adventure now. And now I'm overwhelmed, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm literally, my publishing house just talked to me about my book cover, and I'm like, I don't know what I want, but I want everyone to love it, but it's exciting, and it forces you to do something, and I'm feeling the magic flowing through me. So I think that if you're sitting there, you're at home, or you already have a book out or it's about to come out, and you're like, gosh, I wish, if you have a dream, take that dream, bottle it up, and then put it into the adventure camp and just take a step forward. I really think that, if you're with people together on an adventure, you're never alone. You're always safe. And I think you have the time of your life. And I'm really hoping that people find something magical with them. It's magic. This is going to be magical.
Whenever you speak, Ben, I just think I wish I was as good at speaking as you are. You really,
I hope
really
I'm as good at writing as I'm good at speaking, right? We'll see in August.
First of all, I want to say that and Jody doesn't know that I'm doing this, but I want to give a plug to TRBM. It is because of Jody that, it's because of Jody so many things, but one of the simple and more selfish things is Jody has given me Mondays. Jody has given me an admin day that because I get so focused, and if whatever I'm doing at the beginning of the day is what I'm going to be doing for the whole day. So if I don't come in and sit down and start writing, or if I don't come in and sit down and immediately start doing my marketing videos or whatever, if I don't immediately do that, then I'm lost for the day. And what Jody's podcast has done, aside from being stellar, and it has always got such value to it. So I've actually made my Mondays revolve around, like, when I get up and I get my coffee and I do my emails, I know that there's going to be TRBM in my email. And I'm sorry, shameless plug, whatever. I mean, I have listened with interest. I've been graciously, Jody let me be a guest on it, but I've met other people. Jason Chang is another one who needs to come out. But just so many people. And the podcast itself is so awesome that I literally have created an admin day around that so I can sit and give all my attention to it. I try to always review. You guys review. There's no reason for anybody in our writers community not to be reviewing the books that we read, especially from each other right away. And so I tend to listen to TRBM and I literally start writing my review so I can have it so I don't miss any points because my mind's a little weird. But I also want to shout out to Juliet and Ben in their own little niches. I don't mean little, but you guys know what I mean. But for Juliet, she has this probably the best author newsletter that I've ever seen. There's always a lot of content there. There's news. She includes other writers. Yeah. She really is. I mean, I don't know how many things I'm signed up for, but I know that I always read Juliet's. And it's really stellar. And I do try to forward that and TRBM, on Twitter so that I can say, hey, this, and I try to shout everybody out. But also, Ben, you have this thing on Twitter that just works, and it works uniquely for you. You do a lot of, if this was your book cover, or you pose a lot of questions. You just get so much interaction, and it's a little different than what Juliet does with, like writing prompts or whatever. But the three of you have a very, very nice complementary styles upon the three of you, which makes it great for hashtag writers, right? Because you've got all these niches out there. And then, I think my claim to fame basically is just over talking, but
with good things to say.
Something unique on Twitter. But I just want to say that this is exciting, and we are banding together. With the writing community needs to stop being just a hashtag of writing communities and actually be the community. And we are it. To what Juliet said, we are making policy now because we've tried this, we've tried that, and I know it's boastful to say, but yeah, we're gonna see what we can do to start making policy. Because if we're gonna step up and make the books better, and we're gonna step up and make the covers better, and we're gonna step up and try to do all these things better, then we need to be a better community, and we need to be together on this. And I think that we can, because you look at indie music, you look at indie film, it all started somewhere. And even though indie publishing has been around for a while, but it's really changed in the last 20 years, and it's going to continue to change. So why not get involved? Why not be better? And why not get involved with us? That's what I say.
Mic drop. That's what I say. Juliet.
Pen drop.
I don't know how to follow up with that. Oh my gosh. I'm just speechless, Heather.
Yeah, I hear you.
Thanks for the shout out. Honestly, I've been on Twitter consistently since May. So it's going on a year. I had the account for a while, but never really used it. And the difference that I've seen in myself as a writer, and in how I interact with people is night and day. People will say, oh, it's just social media, it's drama, it's this and that. It is all those things, but it's a family. The writing community, yeah, some people you can take or leave them. That's like with any family, real life family. But it's just allowed me to grow. I've met so many amazing people on there that I now consider really lifelong friends. Some people that know me better than I might even know myself, which is kind of scary. But I can't even imagine not being here anymore, not being on. I know it sounds silly because it is still social media.
It doesn't sound silly,
but
not at all.
I can't imagine being here because of all the people and the connection support that I find here that I don't find in my real life. People who are like-minded. Yeah, I have friends. I have friends in real life that I've known since high school or before, and I love them to death, but we're not on the same page when it comes to dreams and goals, and to find people who are in that same mindset and who have the same dreams and who have the same goals and who are passionate about the same things you are, who just get you and you get them. You just can't find that anywhere else. And before social media existed, I don't know how people did it, because I was so shy and reserved. I would never go out and talk to people, and now I talk to everybody. And you guys are some of the most important people in my life. And that sounds really weird to say, because I've never met any of you in person, but I can't imagine doing life without you,
I agree. And I just want to shout out to one more person. I think that Heather Mello in New York, she needs to, she's got one book out, and I know that she's going to be doing another. Maybe this will help nudge her a little bit, but she's in New York. She'd be great. And I think Ben knows, and I think Juliet and Ben both know Heather as well. So, I think that she's another that we need to get out. You
just want to have all the Heathers.
That's
what it is. Yeah.
Juliet, you said something really crazy, and it blew my mind for a second. I don't know if you realize that you said this, but the Bookfair Tour that we're creating is literally Twitter in real life. Right?
Yeah.
Thank you. I was actually literally thinking that, oh God.
Jody, you and I are on the same page today.
Weird,
so
yes.
It's literally
yes.
The magic and the wonder and the excitement and the support that, this is what you were saying, Julie, the support that you find on Twitter. It's not through DMs. It's not through tweets. It's now going to be in real life.
Yes.
And can you imagine how much more exponentially incredible that would be? It's
yes, actually. I used to be part of the AOL community back in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
And
Chat.
we would
roam the
we met in Vegas, we've met in LA, we met in New Orleans, we met in New York. There were groups of us. There was probably on AOL. We were in the author's lounge, and there was this core of 300 of us, but we would coordinate and we would go and we would meet each other, and we would spend 2 and 3 days. And that's just us meeting with each other. And I'm telling you, it was the most productive writing time of my life, because what Juliet was saying, we were just saturated in each other's business 24/7. And we were all really, really working.
Yes. It makes me want to shout out a few people who are not actually themselves on Twitter. That's the one part that I think we've not necessarily shied away from, but there are plenty of us who aren't using our real names. I am personally using my real name. I'm Jody J. Sperling. Heather's Heather. Yes. But Mystical Maven, or Fanny Adams Ghost. What a lovely, lovely person you are. I would love to have you on this tour. We'll drop mushrooms together.
We need to have that's an offline conversation, Jody, that I've been wanting to have with you.
Oh, so awesome. Okay. I'm not going to do the normal promo of your books and your work, because I will drop it all in the show notes on my Substack. And I want to finish out by saying that in ways you don't understand right now, if you are looking to deepen your conversation and you're listening to this, get in touch with Juliet through Twitter, through email, any of those ways. I will drop all of her information. She's kind of the point person for getting in touch on being a part of this book tour. If you just really want to be part of it, let us know what level. We're looking for a little bit of a writing sample to make sure that you're serious about this, because we want serious writers to be part of this tour. And then I think that the next thing to say is stories can be told by anybody. Put your ego aside and understand that the first story you tell is not the best way to tell the story you want to tell, even of your own life story. You're telling your own life story in a non-optimal way. I know that sounds really statistician-y of me, but your life story is really, really powerful, and having that editor, paying that person to help you tell it the best way makes all the difference. Mark Twain said the difference between the right word and the wrong word is the difference between a lightning bug and a strike of lightning. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining me on this podcast. If you agree with me that it's the best episode of TRBM ever, share it as widely as you can so that we can have people hear this, and we can build from here on up. Thank you for listening to TRBM. The theme music was provided by the ever-talented Christopher Talon. And hey, if you liked what you heard, share this show with other readers, because what's the point of telling stories if nobody's listening?